Sorry, I'm going through. King Tonga's driving me crazy, man.
You're good. Thanks, buddy.
My my son is he lives in Orlando, and his grandfather, although Haku is one of the toughest of all time, I keep telling him you're not very tough against a hurricane. Just
No,
and
they don't want to leave.
I had them in the cars ready to go last night. I got them to go to South Carolina. I said, worst case scenario, I'm wrong. And then I noticed I didn't get a phone call this morning that they left. And then when I called my son just to check in, and he's like, "Oh, we're just putting sandbags," and it just
And
it's
Orlando's right in the
it's
path, right?
they're in Kissimmee. It's even worse. I mean, the bullseye is right in the middle. So and then now my sons and his grandmother and his mother and his uncles, they're tag team champs, so that they're heading to South Carolina anyways, just to get away from the storm. But it's so hard to get the older guys to just go, man. And I know I can't imagine. And again, I guess this kind of fits right in. Hopefully they'll listen to me. But what you guys are dealing with down there in Tennessee and stuff, with trying to get people, as a mayor, getting that message out, it's so difficult. I'm literally personally going through it right now, and I get it. But how much of it is pride? What do you think the biggest thing is, especially with the older population, getting them to go?
Man, I don't know. I think it is. I don't know if it's pride or just self-reliance. To the point of I'm just going to do it myself, and it's like, no, this is. Yeah, I get it. My mom and dad lived through the Great Depression. They're super tough people. I am nowhere near as tough as my mom and dad are. But at times too, it's like, guys, no one can handle this. Okay, you just need to do what you have to do here.
Now, listen, I know, and there's so much, and one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about what's going on, because again, I see on Twitter that you don't care where it's coming from, whether it's a church, volunteers, FEMA, National Guard. You're just trying to organize and help. But there's been so much pushback. I don't understand the attacks on people who are just trying to help people.
Yeah, because it turns political, and it's tragic, because there are literally people's lives who are still at risk. I mean, today I was up in Irwin, Tennessee, which is almost in North Carolina. It's in Unicoi County. You saw those pictures of probably at the hospital in Unicoi County where the water had risen so fast that they had to evacuate to the rooftops. They couldn't leave any other way.
Right.
Tennessee Iowa Patrol, Tennessee National Guard, and our own sheriff's office actually flew their helicopters and got them off got them off the rooftop there. But it turns political, and these folks, there are folks that are up in the mountains. They're isolated. They don't have any electricity. Most of them are going to be on well water because they're not going to have a municipal water supply. So the wells don't work without electricity because you have to have a well pump to get the water up. Yeah, I'm worried about the people talking to these folks today. They're on oxygen. These oxygen machines nowadays, I think they produce it themselves, and some of them don't use oxygen tanks, I believe. But they're USB charged, just like everything else is in our world.
Yeah.
Then you have people that might be diabetic, and the insulin will spoil if it's not kept cold. So if they don't have power, if they don't have any way to keep it cold, they're in deep trouble. So there are still people who, it's not just the recovery. Recovery's coming, and
right.
That will be long term. Right now, it's still just trying to save people from a terrible situation that they find themselves in.
Yeah, I went through this with Hurricane Ida in Louisiana, and it was unfortunately, we had a lot of wind, and we had a tremendous amount of tree damage. Now, of course, when you think hurricane, you always think flood. You think the water damage, which is horrific. But a lot of times, the wind and tree damage can be just as horrific, but the insurance companies and FEMA would seem to treat it differently. Because I was wrestling. I was actually wrestling in NWA 73 for the title, and as soon as my match was over, I look at the thing and I see there's a hurricane, and it was me and Luke Hawk and a couple other guys who lived in Louisiana. Billy Corgan was like, "Listen, wrestling doesn't matter at this point." And we hopped in a Suburban and drove. I think I did a 12-hour drive in 8. I got to get to my family. Because the hurricane hit, and once the power went out, then the looting started, and it was getting out of hand. So I get there, and we're going through the whole thing. We're doing we're searching for gasoline. We're searching for water. Luckily for me, and I'm a planner, and my family's a planner. So we had, stacks of water and gasoline. We were prepared. But not everyone is always in that situation, or quite frankly, doesn't have the financial needs to have a canister of gasoline, and especially with just, yeah, exactly, or contaminated. So going through that, but the damage that my house took, half the roof got ripped off. And, when it came time for insurance claims and whatnot, like, well, that's wind damage, not necessarily hurricane damage. And I was like, you are kidding me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I had all the insurances that you needed, but yet they were still loopholes. And then, of course, after the claim came, you get then your insurance goes so high to the point where I was like, I will have to work the rest of my life to keep my house insured. So I put my house on the market, and I sold it, and I moved. And so and as heartbreaking as that was, because I love my community in Mandeville, Louisiana, but a lot of families are dealing with it. Now we're dealing in a situation now where we're hearing, and again, it's hard to this is one of the reasons why I want to talk, because your boots on the ground. We're hearing a lot of confusing information. The $750 at first was told was given to per household, but now it's I've heard people are saying it's a loan. It's not really aid. Do you know anything about what's going on with that?
On that side, I don't. In fact, I haven't really even been able to pay attention, because we've just been, working with volunteer groups and all that sort of stuff. I don't work since Knox County wasn't impacted. Really, we had some high water, and we had to close a couple country roads, and that was the extent of what hit us. It was nothing like what we saw. We're about 50 miles from Cock County, which got hit pretty good. Then when you go up another hour east, they got devastated. So we're not an impacted county. So, FEMA didn't even talk to us. And we're dealing with the state on stuff, just trying to coordinate and get as much help to these folks as we can. We're much bigger. We have a lot more resources than these counties do. Mayor of Cobb County is a guy named Rob Mathis. I think he's done an outstanding job there. He's really been able to stabilize and has really been able to triage, I guess, is the best word for it. Just kind of to stop anything else bad from happening. But again, you have people in Upper East Tennessee, man. They're just out in the mountains, and they got nothing now. The roads have been washed out. I saw, though, through all this, the most amazing thing is just how people come together. And it's not government. It's just people.
No, it's not. It's people.
Dude, so Saturday we did a food and bottled water drive with an organization called Mission of Hope. By the way, if you're looking for a way to help, Mission of Hope is a good one. missionofhope.org. They have a splash page and a donation link for a dedicated hurricane relief fund. However, we were headed up there, and we were going to a church. I didn't know just a church, right? It was one of those cowboy churches that's kind of outside and horse corral and all this stuff. They were running a logistical operation. They were airlifting supplies into the mountains about 4 miles away in North Carolina and on Tennessee. And it was amazing. They said that these are just people at the church and volunteers. There's guys running around with tractors, with front loaders, moving pallets of stuff around. And they said the helicopter pilot radio in what he needed. They box it up, weigh it, run it down to the horse corral, which is the helipad, and take it off. So we're there about 4:30 p.m. and the helicopter landed. He was taking the 60th load of the day. Wow. 60th load of the day. I was joking, but I'm like, FedEx ain't got nothing on you hillbillies up here. I've never seen anything like it. It was incredible. And things like that are really happening all over the place. It's just unfortunate that it takes something like this for people to come together like that.
And that's the beautiful thing about, because I hear and that's one of the reasons, again, why we're doing this, and hopefully we'll keep doing this weekly to get information out there, and especially to let them know where people can send help. Yeah. Because I get a lot of people like, hey, listen, I've got 2 trucks. What can I do? My buddy Joe Scatero, who's out of South Carolina, he is running supplies into North Carolina from South Carolina, and I'm going to talk to him a little bit early today and their thing is the first group of people they see who are in trouble, they're like, what do you need? They don't care who you vote for. They don't care what color you are, who you sleep. None of that stuff matters when it really comes down to it. They're just out there helping people. And people, like I said, like yourself, who are using your platform and as a mayor to get things done and to help them put people and to give information, because the organization that you just talked about is going to be up on my social media as soon as we're done with this. And we're going to get to where people can help, because I'm telling you, there's people in California going, how can we help? You know, and that's that's the beautiful thing about this. It's surprising, you would think, because it's an election year, that both sides would be outdoing each other in terms of boots on the ground and helping. And unfortunately, we're not seeing a lot of that. But when it comes down to it, what touches my heart and your heart, and you saw it firsthand, is the power of the American people when we come together. So through this ugliness, and again, literally, you don't even get a break, because literally Florida has got, and I'm dealing with trying to get my family all moved out, and you know, and it's so hard to get people to listen sometimes, because especially in Florida, because like, oh, you know, water off a duck's back. Yeah. No, this is a lot bigger duck. Right? Yeah, you know, it doesn't. And again, I grew up on the West Coast. I worried about earthquakes, you know, and I didn't have to deal with too many of that. And a hurricane is that and then some. It seems like it's the worst of everything thrown together. And it's just so tough right now. And again, I'm trying not to get emotional, because my 13-year-old son he's my world, you know, and you just want him out. And I wish more people, and I'm a big, strong guy, you're a big, strong guy, and we're literally telling you, this ain't the fight. You know, you want it, and people are like, well, the traffic, 12 hours in traffic, you know, brother, everything can be replaced, but people can't.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You can replace stuff, but you can't replace people. And that's the most important thing. You know, when we're looking at this, and there's still actually some search and rescue going on. But the main thing for us right now is to try to get to those folks who are still without power, without water. You know, and I wish we'd had warning. We literally didn't. Normally what happens when bad weather comes through the Smoky Mountains, it'll actually break up over the mountains and kind of protect us. This time the mountains held it, and it just rained and rained and rained and rained and rained. You know, I've never seen the water so high on some of our lakes. Thank God the dams didn't actually burst, you know, and it was close, you know, but the water came over the top, but the dams didn't burst. If those dams had burst, man, we'd have seen a tidal wave coming down I mean, it would have been something you'd see in the movies, you know, and as bad as things were, they could have been that much worse, you know, but you know, even economically, the recovery is going to be a long time. Interstate 40's down to one side. I mean, the other side literally slid off the side of the mountain. I-26 is going to be down, you know. So for folks up in that area too, you know, part of their economy is tourism, and that relies on people passing through, and they're not going to be passing through probably for, you know, however many months. So it's going to be a long haul forward. But as you said, you know, yeah, that stuff's important, but you can replace stuff. You can rebuild things, but you cannot replace people.
How is the weather now? I know North Carolina can get cold a lot of times people think, oh, it's the South. Yeah. It's hot all year. That's not the story. No. And it's starting to get in that cold front is starting to come in. How is your weather over there? Are you guys experiencing the colder temperatures? Is it starting with you guys too?
It's not cold yet, but it is starting to cool off. You know, now come 3 weeks from now, it'll start getting colder, especially at night. This morning when I got up, and I get up about 6 a.m, it was about 60 degrees, you know, so it's starting to get, you know, to where you don't want to be without shelter at nighttime, right. Especially. You know,
especially in the mountains, because the mountains are always running cold.
Moving forward for sure.
And while I'm focused on it, what is the shirt you're wearing?
Yeah, so this is one of those great organizations. It's a 9-line shirt. They made it specifically for the Hurricane Relief Fund. It's the, I don't know if you can see it there. It's the Stronger Than the Storm shirt. Yep. So you can go to 9
Yeah, I saw that on
.com and search for the Stronger Than the Storm shirt. Proceeds from this go to either Samaritan's Purse in North Carolina, or they go to the Sentinel Foundation in Tennessee, both of which working on their recovery here.
Now I'm going to have my awesome tech gurus put up stuff in between the interview so people can see, and then we're going to try to get this out as fast as possible. Sorry, tech guys. You know, so we can get this information out there, because I do notice that there's a lot of people jumping in, asking what can they do, where to go, and it might be better at this point for people to send funds opposed to caravanning down there. You know, because sometimes, even though you're in the right, you want to help, but you don't want to be part of the problem either. So,
right.
you know, that's
one of the things, you know. you do hear the stuff about, oh, we got turned away and we couldn't go in. Sometimes the reason for that, I actually did this the other night, man. We had these roads closed, and you don't want to drive through standing water roads because you don't know how deep it is. The road could be washed out. A few years ago, we had flooding here. Someone drowned in their car. We had the road closed.
Yep.
They ignored the sign, so that, there's someone driving through the water. They got to the other side. If they weren't scared of the water, they're sure scared of waiting on the other side, because I'm standing there like this, just staring a hole.
Yes.
And sometimes, and I can admit the authorities can be heavy-handed, in that respect. But sometimes they're just trying to keep people out so they don't have to go in and rescue more folks. Sometimes they're afraid of looters and that sort of thing. So it really is best, instead of what they call self-deploy, just send supplies, send money, send that sort of stuff. And eventually,
or volunteer to those places like, hey,
what's that?
Another thing they could also do is when they're sending supplies is say, hey, do you guys need a volunteer at that site to help? And then that way you're part of something, opposed to me and my buddies loading up my truck and we're going to go do some good. Sometimes ends up exactly me and my buddies now got to get rescued.
Yeah, there's a number of organizations, once we get to recovery especially, I've been talking with like Habitat for Humanity to help rebuild. There's also a group down here called Appalachian Service Project. They build homes, so there's going to be a lot of need over the next, probably next year or so, just to rebuild stuff and rebuild people's homes. So you're going to have a lot of opportunity to help if you want to.
Yeah, and I think Americans will definitely be up for that. I know you have a lot of things to do, and again, like I said, and I appreciate you giving me this time so I can check in with you, and hopefully we can do this again next week so we can just let people know what's going on and where they can send stuff. And again, we're going to get all that information up so we can get those donations going, and me and my family are going to make a donation right after we get off this interview. So again, thank you so much for your time, Mr. Mayor. And again, if you need anything, you know my number. My platform's your platform, sir. And whatever you need, let me know, and I will do the best I can to try to get you in contact with the right people.
Thanks, man. We're praying for your family too, buddy, and everybody down the state of Florida.
Thank you. That means a lot to me.